I'm Fanchen Stinger. I'd like to welcome you to this month's Farmington Hills Citizen Corps Council for Emergency Preparedness cable show. Our topic today, tornadoes. We are fast approaching tornado season, so we all need to be prepared. And of course, the mission of the Citizen Corps Council is to support and enhance the efforts of local public safety organizations in helping ensure that you, the residents, and business owners have the information, the education, and also the skills necessary to protect yourselves, your families, your homes, and your businesses in the event of a local emergency. With me today, Rich Pullman. He is a warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service. Also joining me today, Ken Murray. He's a member of the Citizens Corps SERC Council and also Homeland Security Issues. He is a Civil Air Patrol member of the Michigan Wing. So Rich and Ken, thank you both so much for being here.
Nice to be here, Fraser.
Appreciate your time. First of all, Rich, we talked a little bit earlier when we were talking about heat conditions. It's not very often that we see the faces behind the National Weather Service, so welcome. And thank you for the information you're going to share with us today. What is it specifically that you do as a coordinator?
As the warning coordinator, I'm sort of in charge of the outreach and public service wing of the National Weather Service locally here in Southeast Michigan. So I'll go out and along with a number of forecasters, I can't do it all myself, a lot of forecasters and myself will go out and give school talks, train all our spotters that are vital to our warning operation in Southeast Michigan. I visit with our media partners and our partners in the emergency management community. I try to make sure that the watches, warnings, forecasts that we issue are meeting the needs of the public out there and that everybody is aware of those warnings and that they're well written so people can take the necessary actions.
Living here in Michigan, we are all very aware that coming into summer and through spring, tornadoes are a real threat here in Michigan. What is the biggest challenge of your job, especially when it comes to tornadoes?
Yeah, that tornado warning is by far the biggest challenge that we have in the National Weather Service. Our radar technology is great and it really has improved over the last 10, 20 years. But what we see is we're really seeing the cloud. We're seeing the rotation in the cloud. What happens below the cloud base to the ground is not detectable by any radar out there unless we had a radar on every street corner, and that's just not feasible. So we're seeing that rotation in the cloud, and we could put out the tornado warnings for that rotation, but that's where the role of the spotter is so vital. How is that rotation in the thunderstorm manifesting itself? Is it in the formation stage, what we call a wall cloud? Is there a funnel cloud right before it touches the ground? And as soon as that funnel cloud touches the ground, it is a tornado, and the spotter provides that vital information. That really makes it difficult to issue the warning because latest research suggests the difference between a tornado-producing storm and a non-tornado-producing storm happens in the lowest 500 to 1,000 feet of the atmosphere.
We're going to get to some pictures of tornadoes in just a second, but you mentioned the importance of spotters and working in conjunction with the spotters. Ken, you're a spotter.
Yes,
And
I
when
am.
I hear the word spotter, I have to, it takes me out to that one movie that, storm chasers, or
That's right.
people who
That's
are out
a
there
wild
chasing
movie.
the storms.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to become a spotter, and what has it been like for you?
Well, it just goes hand in hand with what I'm doing with the Citizens Corps Council and the State Emergency Response Commission. These are all things that I consider paramount to putting the whole program together in one package. That if you know some things about one thing, you should know everything as much as possible about what you can and can't do.
So what is it like when you're out there spotting?
I've got my card here, Rich.
Yes.
Just for you. I'm up next year. Well, these are, particularly Michigan gets these unpredictable storms. I remember when I first moved into Farmington a number of years ago, the one that went through West Bloomfield, just north of the Farmington border here. And it was scary. It was the funnel cloud, or not the funnel cloud, but it was a rolling cloud that had multicolors, and it was a scary looking thing. I've never seen anything like that except the storm that went through in Dearborn a number of years ago. Just a green, blue, rolling thing.
And
Just
color,
unbelievable.
Color becomes important, especially in terms of spotting tornadoes. How much of a danger is this for Michigan? Is it a real danger? A lot of times people get used to hearing the warnings. We do the tornado drills at school, but how much of a real danger is it?
Well, it is a danger here in Michigan. I mean, and take an example of this picture right here of the Heartland, Michigan tornado. It was a tornado that occurred in May of 2001, about 4 years ago. And the tornado touched down just outside of Heartland High School, right at dismissal time. and moved through a golf course where they had a golf outing. And the advance warning that we gave, about 10 minutes worth of advance warning, allowed everybody to seek shelter. And fortunately, nobody was hurt on the golf course or at the high school.
I remember that.
And it was our last tornado that we would rate as a strong tornado. We have basic classifications: weak, strong, and violent. And it's the last one here in southeast Michigan that was in that strong category. So it's been 4 years removed since we've had that, but that's something that will happen just about every other year to get one of that strength like that Heartland tornado. Now, as we look at the next picture, it's of the Harbor Beach tornado. It was back on June 13th of last year, just 2004. And this is a tornado that occurred right up there at the tip of the thumb, so really anywhere in southeast Michigan. Farmington, no different than the city of Flint, city of Detroit, or even up at the tip of the thumb, all are possible candidates to see a tornado-producing storm. And this one occurred in Harbor Beach, was rated as a weak tornado, but still a weak tornado. Damaged a lot of trees and damaged about 4 homes up there with roof damage, and certainly something that you need to seek shelter.
How often can we expect something like these tornadoes? And how often can this happen?
Here in Michigan, we're going to average about 16 tornadoes per year.
I think it was that many.
That's incredible.
And specifically here in southeast Michigan with the Detroit and Flint regions, we're averaging about 6 to 7 tornadoes per year.
Wow. And in terms of timing and tornadoes, I understand most tornadoes occur April, May, June, between 3 and 7 p.m.
Right. So that's when I think whenever the weather gets extremely still, or there's a real lack of breeze, or it becomes very humid or something. I think that's the times that these things start to move in on us, and it can be very unsuspecting, I think, to a lot of people.
Let's talk about what actually causes. You bring up a good point. Let's talk about what actually causes a tornado.
Well, basically with the tornado formation, it's all about the twisting of the wind and getting a thunderstorm in that environment. And the wind can twist in a number of different ways throughout the height of the atmosphere and in different regions along the ground. So if you get the right air movement with a strong thunderstorm, you can get a weak tornado produced out of any severe thunderstorm. So. Now across Michigan and across the country, you have those different categories of tornadoes. Most of our tornadoes are going to be weak in that 60 to 120 mile an hour range. But if we have one of those Flint Beecher type of tornadoes, the West Bloomfield tornado of 1976, where we get into the violent category, you can have a tornado on the ground for 50 miles. They can move up to 50 or 60 miles an hour. And they can be maybe up to a mile wide with their damage. Wind speeds on the high end get up to 200 to 300 miles an hour.
Anything you'd like to add to that, Ken?
No, I just the closest, as I said, the closest that I've come to any of that kind of a storm was the one that went through Dearborn a number of years ago, and the one that was in West Bloomfield when I first moved into the Farmington area, and that was one of the strangest skies that I've ever seen. It looked like a Charlton Heston movie when he's opening the Red Sea.
Oh my
or something.
goodness.
It was weird.
Well, let's talk about when a tornado is on its way or when the conditions are right. How are we alerted to tornado danger, and what do we need to look out for?
Well, in the optimal setup, we'll have the tornado watch out and then the tornado warning. When we're looking at the tornado watch and tornado warning, we're looking at storms that are capable of producing a tornado. It doesn't mean, tornado watch doesn't mean that the one is out there yet. It means the conditions are favorable. When we issue the warning, it means one's been spotted by one of our spotters or that the radar indicates that rotation. Now, in that environment, if you're in that particular type of storm, what we call a supercell storm, as the storm moves towards you, you'll see the rain start. You get into the heavy rain, hail will start to fall, maybe get up to large size, maybe golf ball size, or in a rare case up to baseball size. And then all of a sudden, everything stops. Well, if we're even in a tornado watch, I'd suggest getting to your tornado shelter at that point, because the part of the storm that's over you is where the tornado that's the tornado producing type of part of the storm.
So, if you see rain and then hail, and then all of a sudden it's quiet and there's like a calm.
Yeah.
Then you know to go find shelter.
Yeah.
Because you know that one tornado that hit in Grosse Pointe a few years ago,
That's right.
A lot of the people that were out there who were killed, they didn't have warning because they weren't by televisions, they didn't really know what was happening. So we need to be able to kind of look at the weather if we're outside and not near a television.
Yeah, and Yeah, you do need to pay attention to the weather. Anytime that there's a thunderstorm approaching, you do need to get indoors as soon as you hear the thunder. But yeah, if you're in the tornado environment and it does get to that rain, large hail, and then everything stops. Now the wind may not
Is that
be
like
calm.
the eye of the storm?
It's not
moving
like
over?
it's not necessarily a hurricane. It's not really the eye of a hurricane, but that part of the storm is where all the air is going up into the thunderstorm. So it may not be calm as far as the wind, but
Okay.
what's falling out of the storm has quieted down because everything's going up
Okay.
into the storm.
Now, in the case that we do hear a siren, what is the first thing we need to do?
Monitor your TV, monitor your TV or radio, find out if it's a watch or a warning,
Okay.
and then if it's a warning, you want to get to the lowest part of the house.
So a watch means conditions are there.
Condition-
Warning means
right.
it's been spotted.
It's been spotted. Somebody has spotted. One of the spotters has seen it, or it's visible, very
Okay.
visible, and any civilian has picked up on it.
Okay.
So you want to get to the lowest part of your house, the basement or the interior room of your house, if it's a warning. If it's a watch, you want to gather up and make sure you accounted for all your children, your pets, any valuables that you want to get out of the weather and into the house.
Okay.
Now, the siren system is very important, and it is really designed for outdoor warning when you're out there in the parks, and occasionally you can hear the siren if you're close enough to the siren inside your house. But the siren system is not really designed to warn you while you're indoors,
Okay.
and so that's why we suggest having access to the information, whether it's through television, radio. And specifically, the All Hazards NOAA Weather Radio is a great way to keep up to date with information.
Okay.
It's a direct broadcast directly from the National Weather Service, broadcast weather information 24 hours a day. But most importantly, it's going to sound an alarm when a warning is issued for your county.
Okay.
And if you're sleeping at 3 o'clock at night, you're not going to hear the tornado siren.
Exactly.
And it's not built to penetrate the buildings, especially if you're beyond a mile from that siren. And so that's what the weather radio is designed to do. It'll have an alarm louder than the alarm clock, and you'll wake up.
Now, are you one of the voices we would hear on the radio?
Well, the weather radio voice is actually a computerized voice.
Oh, really?
And the
Okay.
reason for that is we have 4 weather radios all across southeast Michigan, and we could be issuing 3 or 4 warnings at the same time. As soon as we hit those enter buttons, they're broadcast on all 4 radios simultaneously. It's a lot more efficient than having a forecaster do one broadcast
Okay.
than one radio after another.
Now, I understand we have some pictures of some conditions that might be taking place should we hear a warning. Let's start with Washtenaw.
Yeah, this picture here of Washtenaw County is the development stage of the tornado. This is a wall cloud. This is something that the spotters learn over and over again about the formation of the tornado.
The infamous wall cloud.
The infamous wall cloud, that's right. And you have the cloud base of the thunderstorm, and when that starts to lower and rotate, you don't have a funnel, but you have this lowering cloud that's rotating, and it's a rotation that you can see. And that's the first stage of tornado development.
Okay.
From that wall cloud, you can get the funnel cloud, and then when the funnel cloud touches the ground, that's when it officially becomes a tornado and damage is occurring.
All right. Hail.
Yeah, the next picture here is of Bad Axe, Michigan, from that storm that produced the Harbor Beach tornado that we looked at earlier. And this is about hail that's 2.5 inches in diameter.
Wow.
So something like this can fall out of the sky at 60 to 100 miles an hour, can be driven by winds of 60 to 100 miles an hour with a severe thunderstorm. And that will do quite a bit of damage to your vehicle, so get those cars into the garage when we
Okay.
issue the severe thunderstorm warning. And if you have 2.5 inch diameter hail like they did up in Bad Axe, and you had the wind, it's going to do some damage to siding and parts of your house. And certainly we don't want anybody to go out there to try to measure the hail. That's going to hurt if it happens to hit
We'll
you.
leave that to the
Yeah,
experts.
yes.
Let's look at Dearborn now and some aftermath pictures.
Yeah, this was a picture of a severe thunderstorm wind gust in Dearborn back in 1998, a pretty significant squall line that moved through the area. Winds estimated up over 80 miles an hour. And it's important with severe thunderstorms to really point out that we want people to take that as seriously as a tornado warning. The severe thunderstorm will produce winds of 60 to 110 miles an hour. That's the same wind speed as a weak tornado, except it'll affect a much larger area. That weak tornado may affect maybe a square mile or so.
Right.
A severe thunderstorm is going to affect maybe half of a county with wind damage. And so when we issue that severe thunderstorm warning, at the very least, treat it like a tornado warning. Get indoors, get ready to seek your tornado shelter if the
Okay.
winds become strong enough.
Do you remember what year the Bad Axe tornado was?
The Bad Axe hail
yeah.
was last year,
Oh, it was last year,
June
okay.
13th, 2004.
Okay.
I'm thinking of one a number of years ago where I went past my insurance agent's facility, and there were a lot of people with dimpled up cars. I'm trying to remember when that was. That was probably about 10 years ago or something.
Oh, wow.
People with new cars, and it was all
Yeah,
full
it can
of
really do some
dimples.
damage.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
You know,
it's terrible.
Speaking of the cars, there were a
Terrible.
few years ago when I was working in the Saginaw area, I was actually on a story, and we were going in the Thumb area, and there was a tornado that was spotted. And we were in the news vehicle, and the photographer said, we have to stop, because we went through the storm, the hail came, and then everything got really quiet. I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is it. We had to pull over, and it was a farmland area, and there were ditches there. So he said, we have to get out of the car and get into the ditch. Now I'm thinking,
That's a good point.
I don't want to get into a ditch. I was defiant. So he ended up having to pick me up and put me in the ditch. I didn't enjoy that, but that is something that we should be aware of. I didn't realize that was what we needed to do. What if you're in your car and this happens?
Yeah, that's discussed in our thing here. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're in your car, what do you need to do?
Basically, a car or a mobile home are not safe places to be with the severe thunderstorm winds even, and especially with the tornadic winds. It only takes about 80, 90 mile an hour winds to make even that news van possibly roll over. And you don't want to be in a vehicle that rolls over. Most people are killed and injured in tornadoes by all the flying debris, all that wood and metal that are circulating around
Because
the
my
vehicle.
first reaction was, I'll stay in the car because I felt safe in the car.
Right.
That's what
Yeah.
everybody thinks.
Right,
That's right.
and that's not true.
The best alternative is to find a shelter, whether it's a home or a business. Certainly here in Farmington, there's enough businesses around that you should be able to find substantial shelter. That's your best alternative.
Okay.
Beyond that, a ditch is going to be your next best bet. Is it
Ugh.
perfect?
No.
No, it's not perfect.
Was
But-
I dirty? Yes.
Yeah.
But that car can flip over, or
You're right.
a tree limb or a tree can come down on the car.
You're right.
Right.
Absolutely.
And again, we want to protect yourself. By getting in a ditch, you're lowering below the ground level, so hopefully all that flying debris will go over your
And
head.
that's what happened.
Yep.
That's what
and
happened.
and that's
It's
exactly
like the
what we
Helen
want.
Hunt movie,
Yep.
Yes.
the Spielberg movie.
Now that video that we saw 15 years ago taken out there in Kansas where people were climbing into the overpass as they were traveling along the Kansas
I remember
Turnpike. That video has been out for 15 years, it's a 15-year-old video, and the Weather Service has kind of been fighting the safety battle against that video. We don't want people to go into the overpasses.
Oh.
There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that you actually are going up into the overpass, you're going higher up, getting higher into the possible debris field of the tornado. And the other thing is the overpass creates a wind tunnel, and the wind tunnel effect actually increases the wind speed. So you're going into an area with more debris flying around and higher winds. Not a good place to be for a tornado. So we want people to stay in their homes and stay in a permanent shelter,
Get
a
low.
permanent building, and get low to the ground.
Okay,
Yes.
Rich, thank you for that because I had no idea. I'm sure most people would not know that.
Yeah.
What else can a family do to prepare for a weather emergency?
Well, I wanted to mention our 72-hour kit, and Rich certainly mentioned about the weather radio. That's part of our 72-hour kit. We have, I don't know if you've ever seen some of the old GI movies, the old Army movies where they've got hand crank radios. They still work.
Really?
And you can still get them, yes. And if you don't have batteries or your batteries go out, you can crank your handheld radio, and it's good for a half an hour, 45 minutes of continual use. And it's part of our 72-hour kit, which we're encouraging all the residents of both cities to have for their survival, because as we know, the police and fire may be jammed up with major disasters, and it may be a while before they get to everybody. So we're going to have to help our neighbor out, and help yourself and help your neighbor with the Block Club situation, the Neighborhood Watch situation. So I mean, all we've got is us. So we've got to take care of each other.
You're right. We have to look out for each other. And in terms of looking out for each other, I imagine it's critical that families come up with a plan.
Yes, it's a good idea to come up with a weather-related safety plan, just like you have a fire drill at your home or at school or a place of business. And I kind of want to actually focus a little bit on businesses as well, because last year we had an event in Illinois where a manufacturing plant was leveled by an F4 tornado. Wow. And the owner of that plant, there are 150 employees, and the owner of the plant was probably considered a weather geek, really into the weather, and he had a weather safety plan. where they all were trained in weather safety, had some spotters out there. They heard the tornado watch, set the spotters out there, heard the tornado warning. 2 minutes later, they saw the tornado coming towards them. They had 60 cars in their parking lot. Not one car was left. They were thrown for miles down the down the field. In that factory, they had 110 employees, and of those 110, they all went into the 3 storm shelters. Not one scratch, not one bruise, not one even minor injury.
Wow,
because
that
of
says a lot.
Because of the weather plan that was in place. And it's a good idea to practice that plan. We don't want anyone to come up with a plan when the tornado watch is issued, or especially when the tornado warning. And with the tornado warning, you may only have a minute or 2 to react. And so you need to have a plan in place that's practiced so that when the tornado warning is issued, you can be ready to get to that tornado shelter. Okay. Now, you do want to pay attention to the signs of an approaching tornado. Things like that rotating wall cloud, the funnel cloud, if you spot that. That dark green sky is actually something to look for. A severe thunderstorm, one with a lot of hail, is going to have a green sky to it. And so if it has large hail, baseball size or golf ball size hail, that's a storm that's strong enough to produce a tornado.
Okay.
And
what about the sounds?
That sound, yeah, you hear it sounding like a freight train or a jet engine. That's true. One thing I'd like to point out with that, if you hear that wind blowing and it makes a freight train sound or a jet engine sound, it doesn't matter if it's rotating or if it's blowing straight from a squall line. The winds are over 80 miles an hour and they're going to damage your house and potentially, significant damage. So even if it's a severe thunderstorm warning and you're hearing that freight train, get to the tornado shelter. You're going to have damage to your house.
Well, preparation is definitely key, and especially the 72-hour kit, as you were mentioning, Ken, as well. So make sure you get information on that from the city of Farmington Hills. It's great to talk about this because this is a reality, and although it can be scary thinking about what can happen in a tornado, it's also very calming to know that we have the information, thanks to both of you, that we need to keep ourselves and our families safe. So remember, tornadoes can occur very quickly. You need to have a plan in place. The best thing for you to do at your home or at your office is get together with your employees, with your family, come up with a plan, practice that plan so that when it happens, you know exactly what to do.
Well, also, Fanchon, as well, we certainly like all the members of the community to have the calendar that spells out all of the tornado facts that we've talked about today, and they can have it with them hanging on the wall or a convenient spot or with their 72-hour kit so they know what to look for and what to do in case of emergency.
And if someone does not have a calendar, how can they get one?
They can get one from the cities, the cities of Farmington Hills, and when we have our first aid shows, when we do our demonstrations, they'll be available at that time.
All right, Ken, thank you so much. Rich Pullman, thank you so much for the level of expertise that you've shared with us today. I know I feel a lot better in terms of knowing what to look for and knowing what to do and how to prepare. So thank you again, Ken, as well. Until next time, I'm Fanchon Stinger, urging you on behalf of the Farmington Hills Citizens Core Council for Emergency Preparedness to make preparedness a part of your day every day. Have a safe, fun, and enjoyable summer. Thanks for watching today.